Well, hey, Heather, I am so glad that you are here and congratulations for being our LYLA of the month. I love just getting to bless someone in our community who I know is wanting to be intentional in living out what God has called her to and really being present in the season that we're in. So, as LYLA of the month, you get a free coaching call, and other people in our community get to listen in and hopefully pick up some nuggets and things like that. So, this is all about you, though. So tell me a little bit about kind of what season of life you're in, and maybe where you're feeling some tension about where your time is going.
Okay. The season of my life right now is coming out of a storm, and I guess you could say walking into a pasture,
Hmm.
where I am seeing all kinds of growth around me and within me. Um, Mainly with my business, and also with my daughter. Seeing some tension between that and living in the present life, wanting to move forward and get those plans going for the business and the next, pushing forward through the next season of my life, but also wanting to be in the moment
Hmm.
and sharing that time with my loved ones.
Yeah, I think
So
that you are not alone in that, right? And that's why I like to say, what is it? What's the tension in this season? Because in every season we're in, there's something, and sometimes it's a consistent thing for a while, and sometimes
mhm.
it's something that shifts or it's a little bit different. And so it's not a bad thing when we feel that tension, but it is a good opportunity for us to push pause and really like do some assessing and then realigning to make sure that that our time and attention is going where it matters most. So what I heard you say was that you're wanting to spend time working on your business. Tell me a little bit about kind of how much time is that taking, and what are you like, what kind of timeline do you have for that?
Well, let me just kind of give you a rundown of what I do at the moment.
All
So
right.
I have a 40-hour a week position with the Department of Revenue that takes up Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, pretty much.
Okay.
So then around that, I'm working my health coach business, and I have started a cardio drumming class. So 2 nights a week, I do a cardio drumming class. And then in between that, um, you know, attending to some current clients, trying to make sure I'm posting on social media
Hmm.
to, further that cardio drumming. That is pretty much how I live my life at the moment. And then you've got church. I got choir and then church, and yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned your daughter, right? So she's someone that you're
Yeah.
wanting to spend time with. Is there any other Are there any other significant people like right now in this season of your life that you want to make sure you're being intentional with?
Yes, my mother. So I live with my mother. She is 78 years old today.
Oh my goodness.
Um,
Happy birthday, mom.
yeah. and um and there has been some tension there, being in close quarters with your mom, trying to build a business while trying to give your attention to other things, knowing that you don't have all the time in the world with her,
Yeah.
and you want to be in the present with her, but you also want to try and build your business and move ahead also. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely my mom. I
I
lost my dad this last year, so I want to try and have as much time with her as possible.
Yeah, I feel that tension. I think especially as we start having aging parents, anything could happen obviously to any of us at any time earlier in life,
Mhm.
but it gets to the season of life that I think we start really realizing and appreciating that time is limited and we don't have, forever in this life. And that's for good, that's good too, because we don't want to be here forever, but heaven will be so much
Right.
better. But yeah, wanting to be intentional, with her. And what a beautiful gift you have. Even though I know that there are struggles in being in the same space, it also gives you so much more opportunity to be able to be with her and to share some of those everyday moments and things like that. So that would be, one thing is like really looking at this season, like really kind of asking God to give you a perspective of gratitude. Because I find that oftentimes when we look at our time, we either feel like
Mhm.
we have an abundance of time, which is hardly ever. I hardly ever talk to somebody who's like, oh my goodness, I have all the time in the world, right? Or we look at our lack of time. right? And when we have an
Mhm.
abundance mindset, we're seeing the possibilities, we're seeing the opportunities, we're seeing the gifts that God is giving us in that time, and knowing that He has an abundance of time, right? So like He holds it all, right? Like He has way more than we need. But when we look at things from that lack place of I never have enough time, or I wish I had time, or if I only had time, then we tend to like see the things we don't have or the things we think that we don't have. So that would be one challenge to you is just asking God each day, God, give me your perspective on my time. Help me to see that you have given me all the time that I need for what you've called me to in this season. Because
Right.
if you truly believed you needed, 36 hours in your day, well, then you'd have 36 hours. But guess what? He's pretty sure that 24 is plenty. Because
Right.
let's be honest, more hours in our day is not going to fix the problem because it's really not a calendar problem. It's more of a heart problem, right? And how we're thinking about
Right.
it. So, but even with like your mom, and even when there are the tense moments, or even when, it's I'm feeling this tension between sitting with her and going and doing this, like just
Mhm.
number one, being grateful that you just have that opportunity to sit and have a cup of coffee, to have lunch together, to, say hello for a few minutes or watch a show together or whatever it is, and not seen as an interruption or as anything that's getting in the way of your, grandiose plans to build the business so that you can move on to this, this next season of life. But really just enjoying those moments. And, this is something I have to remind myself of all the time too, is like when I'm in those times and with those people, like not to be running through my should do's, my to-do list, right? Of all the things I'm going to do as soon as I'm done sitting here, or that I could be doing if I wasn't sitting here. And I even had to do that the other night with my husband. We were sitting out in the dock and my mind started going to all the things that needed still to be done. And I just was like, no, because right now this is a time when I'm just focusing on connecting with him. So
Mhm.
having that perspective of gratitude and seeing the opportunities in the time you have versus, the lack that you have might be one really good place to start. Tell me like maybe how that resonates with you and how you see that as something that could be beneficial.
I think that could be very beneficial. And it's a nice reminder because are you familiar with Jim Rohn?
Oh yeah.
Yes. So, like Jim Rohn says, when you're at work, be at work, and when you are at play, be at play. So it's the same idea, and so it's just it's a good reminder that I need to, you know, if I, my nooks and crannies that I have, like at the breaks at work, like on my
Mhm.
breaks at work, I can work on my business then. But when I come home, I need to give my mom that
Mhm.
next hour or whatever at
Mhm.
that time to be with
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
So when I'm at home, be at home.
Yeah, I love that, right? When you're working, working, when you're playing, playing, when you're at home, just be at home. And yet that's so hard, especially when you're
Yes.
working a 40-hour a week job plus building something else. And so it's okay to come to still do some business things when you're at home. Like I've had to
Hmm.
work through this as well because being an online coach who does everything from home, I don't have like I punch out a time clock and then, I leave everything
Right.
behind. It's still going on in my brain, even if I'm not doing it. But making sure that you're carving out intentional time for those other things that matter. So, just out of curiosity, because you kind of segued into what my second thing was going to be that came to mind as you were talking, is laying out what your ideal week looks like. Like, have you laid out on paper like here's what I want my days and my week to look like, or where you block out your work time and then are intentional about putting in your God time, so you're filling up with what you need, intentional about specific times you want to spend with your mom, and not that there can't be outside of that, but some intentional time as well as intentional time for your business. Do you have something like that like laid out on paper that you can see and kind of keep you focused on where you're supposed to be at that time?
Well, I do and I don't.
Okay.
So I believe it was you that had talked about the big rocks and the little rocks
Right.
on the calendar. So I have all my big rocks on my calendar, but I don't have all the smaller stuff
Mm.
on my calendar. So like I have, yes, the nights that I have choir practice and cardio drumming, and then I've, blocked off the days that I'm actually at work or if I have an event coming up, but I haven't really blocked off like any power hours for working my business, or any um time specifically for my daughter or for my mom. I haven't done the little stuff on my calendar. I got the big stuff.
Sure, right? And when you say the
Yeah,
little and the big, I mean, those are just as big, not to make you feel overwhelmed, but I would say those things are just as important as those other commitments that, you have to show up to the job or you're not going to get paid type of things. So what if
true.
here's what I would recommend, because there's something about seeing it on paper. There's something about seeing the flow of your week, and not just a digital calendar that's on your phone, because when you scroll vertically, you can't see how everything, kind of goes together and what things look like. But
Right.
laying it out in a horizontal layout. So whether you do that on paper, which I'm a huge proponent of paper, or you can even use like a Google
Mhm.
Calendar as long as it's a week at a glance, right? But I would say go ahead and put in, and here's what I would do. Those things like work, where you're already blocked out and that's like time you're not available for these other quote unquote small things that aren't really small things, like just darken those, like just make them like a block that's already like darkened out. So it's like, this isn't time that I can do anything else because I'm committed to this. So those big rocks, put that in there. And then what would be great, then your next thing to do is to, make a list. And, sometimes we make a really long list and, we just can't make it all fit. But I would say maybe 3 to 5 other important things that you want to start being consistent in creating space and time for. Right. And so then you can
Okay.
sit down, you can look at your week laid out, you can see what's already, when am I already not available? So that's not even an option, right? I'm not going to look at the lack and go, oh my gosh, I can't do this. It's just, it is what it is, right? And then you go,
Hmm.
okay, so I have this block here of mom time. When can I, and not that I can't have the little 15, 20, 30-minute things here and there, but when can I give her a good hour? When can I give her a good 2 hours? Whatever it is you want to do, right? Put that in somewhere. Put one in for your daughter. I would say put, 1 or 2 in for building your business, because it is going to take time and attention for you to build, that. And if you feel like I don't even have space to put these 3 to 5 things on here, then one thing would be
Hmm.
to really go back and evaluate the other things you've already committed to. Because sometimes we say yes to things and it's not that they're bad things. Sometimes they're really great things, but if they're not allowing space for these other things that really do matter, then we're always going to feel that tension. And maybe it just was a season that it was important, and right now your focus has to go elsewhere, and maybe it'll come back, where you can do that another time. Now the job you
Right.
probably can't like ixnay because that's your paycheck, right? But look,
Right.
what are some of the other commitments that I've made? What is, is this really moving me towards what God is calling me to in this season? And again, sometimes pausing things, I've had to pause things before because the season I'm in just doesn't allow for it. And it's okay. Like no shame, no judgment, no, whatever, just put it on pause and then say, I'm going to come back and revisit this in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. And maybe things will have opened up or look different and I can grab this back up again. Or maybe I'm going to, not have this on my regular, task list or schedule or whatever. And then I find, what, it's okay. Like, I don't really feel the need to go back to that. So that, that'll kind of help you to see like what really matters in this season, especially when you've got, an aging parent that is not forever, when you have this opportunity to be close
Right.
to her, which is not going to be forever, those different things, and so then kind of lay that out. And then of course, no week goes 100% according to plan, right? But here's
Right.
what it sounds. Instead of saying, oh, I should work on my business, I should spend time with my daughter, I should spend time with my mom. Like, how does that make you feel when you say things like that? When you hear yourself say that, do you ever say that, like, oh, I should do this week, and then
Yeah, it makes me sound like I'm not really committed.
okay, yeah. And sometimes it brings in that guilt, like, oh, I should do this, like, oh, but I feel this,
Yeah.
I can't, right? Versus, yeah, this week, like, this is an intentional time, and then when you communicate to them, like, I want to carve out time that's just us. That really makes that other person feel special too. And when they know they're going to get that time with you, like, oh my goodness, wow. So yeah, if I don't get, the 15 minutes today that I really wanted, it's okay because I know we're going to get an hour tomorrow. So sometimes that, just helps you and them know I'm clearing out space to really be intentional, in this area. And then, and then look for the little moments, because sometimes it's just those little things, like you said, in between something that we can,
Mhm.
just get a hug or get a smile or get a quick idea down or whatever it is. Sometimes God, like allows us to really sometimes he often allows us to maximize the nooks and crannies when we're really putting it, in his hands and trusting, and whenever something comes across your path that wasn't part of the plan, just really pausing
Right.
and discerning, is this an invitation or is this a distraction? And, and then putting your time and attention where you feel like God is calling you to. And, and if the day just gets way off track, that's okay. Then you just go back to your plan the next day. Right. Or, it's never all is lost. It's always let me just assess and readjust.
Gotcha. And I like that where you said, is this an invitation or a distraction? That's a good question to ask.
Yeah, because there are a lot of good things, and there are a lot of people that probably really like you and think that you're pretty great and want your time and attention as well. And that's not always a bad thing, but it's also okay to say, you know what, in the season I'm in right now, I really feel like I need to be giving my time and attention to these three things. But I would love to connect. Let's touch base at the end of summer, or whatever. And it's still valuing that person or that request or whatever else it was, but it's giving you that,
Mhm.
that space to say, right now, this is where my attention needs to go. Yeah.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So here's going to be your homework then. Number one is
Okay.
to be really checking your mindset, and praying regularly on the daily. In fact, I said this to my group coaching clients the other day. God gives us an abundance of time for what he has called us to. And like he's not going to give us something and then be like, ha ha, just want to make it hard on you because you don't have any time. Usually it's not, we don't have time because it's our fault. The big ways we're wasting it, or all those types of things, right? God has given me an abundance of time for what he has called me to. And really having that perspective and asking him, God, show me where I have time and where you're giving me time that maybe I'm missing, maybe I'm not seeing. Help me to see it as a gift. Help me to see it as an opportunity. So kind of checking that mindset, maybe saying that affirmation, maybe once a day, maybe 100 times a day, whatever you need. And then your second piece of homework would be to like block off, on either a paper piece of paper or in Google calendar, the time that you're not available, and then take those 3 to 5 things that right now in this season are really important to you and decide where can these fit. And then test it out, right? I really feel like this is all this one big experiment, right? We're like testing it out. We think this is how we want things to flow. And then we realize, oh my gosh, that was a train wreck. That didn't work. And that's okay. You can just adjust, right? Assess, readjust, try something different. But yeah, and start, just intentionally giving time to those things. And then when you're showing up, right, if it's time to show up with your business, you're fully with your business. And you're not feeling guilty about not being with mom or not being with your daughter, if you're spend time with mom or your daughter, you're fully showing up with them and not feeling like I should be doing my business, and then just, let's check in a couple weeks. I'd love to hear like how that's shifting things for you. And, if you're starting to feel a little bit less of that tension and what difference that makes in your time. Does that sound good?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, good. Any other thoughts or questions you have before we go?
I don't think so. Well, maybe a thought. I was kind of like little spurts off and on in what you said. It goes along with where God just tells us that we need to be still. So I think this plan plays into that.
Yeah, and I
Just
will.
be still. He'll take care of what he needs to take care of, and you focus on your thing.
Yeah, and that's just a great reminder to make sure that you are
Mhm.
having some refill times with him, whether that's morning
Mhm.
or sometime during the day or evening, because we need to get filled up with him because you're pouring all day long, right? Literally all day and probably into the night.
Yes.
So you have to have that refill time. And it's okay also when you are working on that paper calendar, I want you to intentionally leave some margin. And I know
Okay.
that people who are doers, people who want to be as efficient as possible, who we have big dreams and goals, we're like, I got to fill every nook and cranny with something, right?
Yes.
Just like stack everything up. But what happens is it's like traffic, and all the cars that are bumper to bumper, and then one car hits and then they all, start crashing. But like intentionally leave some space, because those are places where it's like we're leaving space and room for, whatever God does. And sometimes if we're packed so tight, then we're not open to his interruptions, which are not the bad kind, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, we'll check back in with you. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit about your heart and your life and letting us dive into your calendar together. And excited to hear how this is going for you.
Me too. And thank you. This
You're
was
welcome.
very much a pleasure and very much needed.
We all need it, girl. Just so you know, we will never have arrived on this journey. So we're going to keep asking these good questions. So, all right. Thanks so much, Heather.
Thank you.